The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1, John Key.
Madam Speaker, my question to the Prime Minister reads, does she stand by her statement in July regarding the Right Honourable Winston Peters, quote, "I've made it clear all the way through this round of allegations that I accept an honourable member's word as his bond unless I have reason to doubt it. I don't have reason to doubt it at this point," end quote. And how does she reconcile that with her statement last week in the House that in her meeting with Mr Owen Glenn in February she was, quote, left with the impression that he had been asked for money, end quote, by Mr Peters, and that sometime later he'd been advised where to pay it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, as I said last week, my assumption was that both men were honourable gentlemen and there may be some innocent explanation.
Supplementary question, John Key.
Well, why did she maintain that she had no reason to doubt Mr Peters' word that there was no donation from Mr Glenn, when in fact she had a very good reason to doubt his word? In fact, she had the best reason in the world to doubt his word, because Mr Glenn had personally told her that he had not only asked for a donation, he had actually paid it to Winston Peters.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Because, as I assumed that both were honourable gentlemen and there may be some innocent explanation. I can see, Madam Speaker, there's been a bit of a dust-up in the Tory party caucus this morning and they've decided to come down and yell their way through question time.
Supplementary question. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can I ask the Prime Minister as to what the purpose would be of holding a privileged committee hearing if the leader of a party with 4 members on it has made up his mind before he's heard any of the evidence who is guilty and who is not? Or does he just base his word on the rich and everybody else doesn't matter?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, clearly in this House today there is a process to go on in the Privileges Committee, and I think it is important that both sides are heard.
Supplementary question, John Key.
Why has the Prime Minister continued to accept Mr Peters' claim that he knew nothing of a donation from Mr Glenn until he was told by his lawyer on the 18th of July, when, funnily enough, the Prime Minister herself told Mr Peters about it in February?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, as I've told the House, I have always believed there may well be some innocent explanation for the 2 conflicting stories. I realise, Madam Speaker, that the fact that policy is leaking out of the National Party like a tidal wave is cause for concern for them, but that's no reason to be a disruptive rebel at question time.
Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can I ask the Prime Minister as to whether she remembers her call to me when I was in Africa, which was to repeat a claim made by the New Zealand Herald that money had been paid to New Zealand First, to which Mr Glenn has, before the committee, denied that as well? Or should we have a Privileged Committee hearing where the facts don't matter, just bias and prejudice?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I've consistently said, I believe it's important that the processes in train are followed, and it does concern me when people leap to conclusions about which side of evidence they'll come down on.
Supplementary question, John Key.
Well, what could be the innocent explanation that means that a large donor of the Labor Party, someone who was trying to support the Labor Party, said he gave $100,000 to Winston Peters, and yet Mr Peters, the man who was responsible for appointing potentially Mr Glenn to Monaco, says he has no memory of it and can't remember it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, it's to be hoped that the Privileges Committee will get to the truth of the matter.
Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Prime Minister, is it not a fact, as Foreign Minister of New Zealand, that you're now aware that the only written appointment on the question of a position in Monaco came from Mr Richard Worth of the National Party?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, indeed the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Phil Goff, informs that he was lobbied by a National Party member to have someone that member knew appointed as the Consul General in Monaco.
Supplementary question, John Key.
Well, does the Prime Minister believe it was misleading when she responded in February to this question? She was asked, do you believe that Owen Glenn gave substantial money to New Zealand First? And she gave the answer, well, that's a matter for New Zealand First to answer, isn't it? Not a matter for me. When just 4 days earlier, Owen Glenn told her that he'd given a donation to New Zealand First. She knew all along that there was conflicting information, but her modus operandi was keep the New Zealand public in the dark for as long as she possibly could.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as the record shows,
Order.
I was asked to express an opinion and I declined to do so.
Supplementary question. The Honourable Dr Michael Cullen.
No, Madam Speaker, can the Prime Minister confirm if the assertion in the Leader of the Opposition's last question is correct, that is that Mr Glenn gave a donation to New Zealand First, then clearly there was no donation to Mr Peters that required declaration?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker,
Order.
Madam Speaker, I suggest that the Deputy Prime Minister's right, and once again Mr Key's come down rather ill-prepared as he tries to put out the fires in his own caucus, which not only leak his policies but leak his diaries and his secret meetings with Lord Ashcroft, where, what a surprise, he discusses Crosby Textor's advice to Tory parties.
Supplementary question. Order. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
I can ask the Prime Minister whether it's required in this business of politics to be able to hold a thought beyond the next currency movement, and that deals with facts. And if Mr Glenn has told the committee that he now says he didn't give any money to New Zealand First, why is it Leader of the Opposition can't accept that, or his members who are meant to be impartial and neutral and unbiased on the committee accept that?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, it's certainly my view that the Leader of the Opposition has put his party's members on the Privileges Committee in a very difficult position. But then, of course, flip-flops are no stranger to Mr Key, who yesterday had the Families Commission gone by lunchtime. Today he's just going to rebalance it.
Supplementary question. Order. Order. Supplementary question. John Key.
Well, does the Prime Minister recall a few moments ago saying that when she was asked whether New Zealand First had received a donation from Owen Glenn, in her response she said she declined to offer a view or declined to give an answer? In fact, that wasn't correct, was it, Prime Minister? What you decided to do was keep the New Zealand public in the dark, keep it secret from them, and hopefully keep it hidden before the election.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, not at all. I was asked whether I believed they had had a donation, and I declined, Madam Speaker, to express an opinion on the matter. Madam Speaker, if anyone is keeping this country in the dark, it's Mr Key on how he contrives to get Lord Ashcroft to pay for his polling and his spin doctoring without having it in the National Party's accounts.
Order. It's impossible to hear. Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.